Welcome back, everybody. So the other day I'm playing this game for the first time, Ever Oasis for 3DS. It's an action JRPG with town building simulation mashed up into one, and I'm liking it so far. But I get to this simple menu here, just a list of my items, and would you take a look at that? Basic item descriptions, little icons for them. But would you believe that I was actually enamored by this page here, and it inspired today's video. This also happens to work perfectly as a follow-up to what I did a few weeks ago, my Peeves With Games. I will link that in the description, and what that was just a lighthearted look at some of the things that bothered me or annoyed me in games. I called them questionable decisions, I think, and one such example was, why is it in a JRPG when your character has some military experience, he's starting out at level 1? Wouldn't it make more sense for him to be level 5 or level 10? And so today's video is in the opposite direction. These delights could also be called examples of attention to detail by the developers. I'm going to focus on these little flourishes that don't enhance the core gameplay necessarily. Many of them are aesthetic in nature, but at the end of the video, I will expand this and then you can comment however you want to when you're listing your examples of delights. So we're going to start out with that Ever Oasis example, item lore and icons. And I'm also going to give you the earliest examples that I remember seeing these things in games, or the ones that most vividly stick out in my memory. So for me, it reminded me of Paper Mario and Tales of Symphonia. This is not only an outstanding RPG, but a great way to dive into the Mario universe and to get completely immersed in it. There are so many things that become fleshed out in the game. In one instance, you get to meet this character, Taste Tea. She's a chef. You can give her one item and she'll cook it and transform it, or you can give her 2 items and she'll combine those and cook them and transform them. For example, if you give her a Koopa leaf, she'll brew you some Koopa tea and it can restore some TP. If you give her a fire flower and maybe you combine that with something else, it might become an item that you can use to damage the opponents. And I just remember from childhood, one of my favorite things in this game, trying to get 100% completion, although I don't think I ever did, was filling out the cookbook. And I loved seeing those new icons. I love the fact that the developers created a cookbook with all of these unique sprites to display the foods that were being talked about. And later on, I don't know how many years older I was when I finally played Tales of Symphonia. Once again, I found myself getting completely invested and immersed in the game world, partly because of little details and touches like this. An item, being given a unique drawing to show you what it looks like, and sometimes having a description for how it came about in the game world. It's these little touches that I realize are fairly commonplace in games nowadays, especially since developers have the technologies and you've seen it before, so it's become status quo. But when I was growing up, those were a couple of the earliest examples where I experienced them. It was a brand new concept to me, and I loved it and appreciated it. And I just found it funny how when I saw these icons here in Ever Oasis, I was taken back to my childhood and in my teenage years, seeing items in Tales of Symphonia and Paper Mario. The next thing on this list, idle animations. Now, again, something that we see in virtually every game today, or at least in a third-person or first-person game. You see your character, you don't touch the controls for a little while, they do a little shuffle, they kick their boot. In a first-person game, you might see them hold out their weapon, turn it around, and take a look at it. The earliest example that I can recall seeing this, and completely loving it, was in one of the Sonic games. That was not a console we owned. I would just go to my uncle's, play Sonic 1 or 2 or 3. So I don't remember which Sonic was doing it, but Sonic had that attitude when he looked at the camera or when he crossed his arms and he tapped his foot on the floor. From the games that I owned, the one that I really remember it in, and the coolest character and the coolest idle animations, came from Ocarina of Time. So young Link and adult Link both did this, but that tapping of your boots on the floor, that's coming directly from here. Young Link, everyone knows the iconic stretch and yawn that he does. And adult Link might have some other stuff that he does there too. Next up, good character designs and good outfit designs. Now I realize this is not something that fits with everything else on this list. It's a funny one because it's very subjective. But I feel like since we started getting 3D models, 3D characters in games, and they were being dressed up from head to toe, front to back, we've been able to judge them for what they wear. And I'll bring this example in one more time. This is a fantastic design. and I will always think that this is one of the coolest characters in gaming. I'll go back to one of my favorite games of all time. You already saw this, but Tales of Symphonia. I'm sorry, but your main character, the protagonist, having an all red, not a jumpsuit, but just tons of red from head to toe is not appealing to me. And even in sci-fi games, Xenoblade Chronicles, for example, half the time I'm going through their outfits and I'm thinking, what are they wearing? Why would you ever want to dress your character up in something as ridiculous as that? So this is just something that when it's done well, I can appreciate it. Final Fantasy, all the excess belts, that's been made fun of to death by people online, but you get it, right? You get why sometimes when a character design is just done well, it's almost like a relief that, oh, I'm so glad they didn't mess that up, because so many of your favorite series might have some pretty questionable character design choices. Reactive brush and foliage, not just the sound cues. I love how in more modern games, not all of them I don't think, as you go past a plant, it moves with your character model. Now, I can't remember what the first games were that I played where I experienced that, but it's something that when I see it in a game today and it moves realistically with my character, I greatly appreciate it. Background wildlife. Now, I for sure cannot remember the earliest examples that I saw this in games. And I don't mean in something like the Elder Scrolls, how there's wildlife and you can fight it. That's not in the background. I'm talking about you're just playing a game, and as you look up in the sky, you see some birds flying. They have no interaction with your character. They have no bearing on the gameplay whatsoever. They don't even have to be in the game, but they're there, and they just add a little extra detail and believability to the world that you are in. So Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, those have a lot of birds in the background. And again, I'm sorry, but I just can't think of some other examples or earlier examples where there were background creatures and they're just there for the sake of adding a little more believability. Similar to background wildlife, next up, weather effects. Now, I don't mind if these have to do with the gameplay. If, for example, you get to a part of a game and there's a thunderstorm and all of a sudden you're playing in the thunderstorm and there might be a gameplay element like dodging the lightning. No, I don't like that one. I'm trying to think of examples, though, that don't have any bearing on the gameplay. And I can't go too far back here, and understandably so, because these things start to get a little more technical. You need a little more technology to do so. Dota 2, a game that came out in 2011, 2012 on PC. It has these cosmetic packs, these filters that you can apply to your game, cherry blossoms and these pink particles floating around, snow and rain effects, and they have no impact on the gameplay whatsoever. I think I'm remembering correctly when I say Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. This is a game that I played in university, and it was a bit of a choppy experience for me, going back into the game, losing my progress, having to restart a couple of times. But I'm pretty sure in that game I witnessed these thunderstorms way in the distance, and they were just there so that you could enjoy them. Could have been part of a mod pack, I don't remember, but you can contribute your own examples of weather effects that you delight in video games. Secrets and hidden areas, and throw in Easter eggs as well. Oh, we could make a long list of these, and I've watched tons of videos with Easter eggs and secrets in my favorite games. The earliest example comes from the Super Mario Bros. Series. So I guess technically Super Mario Bros. 1, where you can go over the wall in level 2, the first underground level, and you can find the 3 pipes there. That blew my mind as a kid. But even cooler than that was in Super Mario Bros. 3. In the first level, there's this white frame, a little asset that your character can stand on, and if you crouch on top of it for a few seconds, you hold down, your character eventually drops behind it, and now you're running in the background of the level. You can still collide with enemies that are where your character would be, but that was so cool. Super Mario Bros. 2, if you want to talk about hidden areas, I guess, or I guess these are just alternate areas, but when you throw a potion down and you enter, I'll call it the dark world, I don't know what else to call it. I'm thinking also, though, in high school and junior high, Halo 2 and Halo 3. Halo 1, the original for Xbox, did not have these, but skulls. Skulls were these little collectibles hidden in various parts of the map that you had to go out of your way to find. If you just went from point A to point B trying to solve the mission objectives, you would not find a skull. But if you went out of your way, off the beaten path, you would find these little things that, like I said, you could collect them, and then when you replayed a game or you started anew, you could activate them in the menu and they would have these special effects. For example, Grunt Birthday Party, I think that's what it's called. You shoot a grunt in the head, this little enemy, and it explodes in confetti. And there's this little cheer effect, like, yay! Little things that affect your difficulty, your bullets, take away your HUD, etc. So yeah, Super Mario Bros. 1 to 3, Halo 2 and 3, although I understand that Halo in the Master Chief Collection, that's from the Halo 1 PC port, that does have some skulls added retroactively. Destructible environments. Oh, these are fun. And this is something that I've been wishing for a long time. And even in a lot of modern day shooters and FPS games, I still feel like there's a long way for developers to go if they want to implement and include destructible environments. A little tangent right now, but I realized that because having destructible environments changes the gameplay so much, you go one of three ways. You implement them fully, and the game has to be designed around that. The fact that you could have everything turned to rubble. Partially destructible environments, like Battlefield 2, where the whole building cannot come down, but you can chip away at a corner of it or a column, and that'll affect how the gameplay goes for that section. Or, of course, you just don't have it at all. So if you go back to a game like GoldenEye or Perfect Dark, when you shoot the wall, you're not destroying the wall, you're not damaging it. Cyberpunk is actually the same way, too. You have this little decal, we'll call it, that appears on the wall, and it's just a little sprite of the bullet impact. And then you can just cover the wall in these little bullet impact pictures, but you're not actually doing any damage there. I thought of this. The earliest destructible environment is from Zelda 1, at least that I've experienced. Bombing walls, burning bushes. Now, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody because I didn't play that game when it was first released, but is that the most satisfying example of a destructible environment? No, it's not. Next up, thematic HUDs. A HUD is a heads-up display. You could call it an interface or a UI, and these are just the things that appear on screen when you're playing the game. A game that does it perfectly and fully immerses you and makes it believable is Metroid Prime. So you see the screen through Samus's visor, and it's fully believable that the icons to your left and the icons to your right, and even your health bar above your head, these are how Samus would see them within her suit. These are little displays that would appear in a sci-fi future. Where it sometimes doesn't make as much sense, obviously, if a game's not first person, these are just things that are littering your screen. But developers can still go a little bit of an extra mile and at least design them in such a way that they fit the themes of the game. So Xenoblade Chronicles, your screen is littered in all kinds of stuff, all kinds of information. It's not an immersive HUD. It's not an immersive UI. I'll go back to the example of Ocarina of Time and even include Majora's Mask. These are really funny ones because the UI is in the design of the Nintendo 64 controller. So for example, where you assign your items and equipment is on these little C buttons, and those look exactly like they do on the Nintendo 64 controller. So Nintendo there is obviously not going for an immersive experience to make you believe that you're Link, but they are trying to pull you more into the game by showing you the buttons of the controller in the game itself, I guess. If you have any examples of games that are not first person and that do a creative job of having UI that matches the themes of the game, a great aesthetically pleasing presentation, please list them. Next up, day and night transitions. And if you want to talk about day and night having different music, I appreciate that as well. Let's take a look at one of my favorite childhood games here, Pokemon Silver. This had day and night implementation, but it was not a gradual transition. So in this game, when it hit, let's just say 6 p.m., all of a sudden became dark out. And then when it hit 5 a.m., then it was dawn, 7 a.m., let's say, okay, now it's daytime. And you compare that, and I've been talking about this game a lot in this video, to Ocarina of Time, and they actually did the transition. Now, if I recall correctly, it was still a little bit quick when it went from day to night. For example, like in that last half hour, it would just rapidly get dark out. Compare it to Breath of the Wild, they have the technology, and they were able to make it a more gradual shift to darkness. Finally, the one that I'm going to wrap up with is customizable crosshairs. I love this. I don't always make good use of it. I don't do anything crazy with my crosshair. I still want it to be really effective. Marvel Rivals, I think every Valve shooter does this to some varying degree. It's just something that if you want to go crazy with it and expand your crosshair to look like this on your screen, you can. I always go for a very stereotypical cross like that, a circle around it, and a circle inside of it. Sometimes I experiment. I might want to leave the circle inside out so I can see when somebody's head gets into that little nook right there. But yeah, just appreciating the developers who do customizable crosshairs in their shooter games. And that brings us to the end of the video. So again, I focused on these little things that were mostly aesthetic in nature. They didn't have any direct impact on the gameplay. I know Destructible Environments does, but for the most part, my list was full of things that if a game developer just wanted to include something for the fun of it, or for some beautiful reason, or a fun reason, or a cool factor, they just did it. Not necessarily because it would make the gameplay any better, but because somebody out there might see it and might appreciate it. Now, if you want to interpret this delights idea into some other ways, here's how you could do that. Maybe you like quality of life improvements. Maybe to you, a gameplay delight is auto-battling when you get the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. Maybe to you, it's something like a gameplay accentuation. It could be the crosshairs, I guess. It just kind of accentuates the gameplay by having your own twist on how you can play the game. Not really sure what some other examples are off the top of my head. Or maybe your delights are things that are outside of the game experience. Or it's you being on the sofa, getting comfortable, and treating your gaming as a bit of a ritual. That is the real delight, that when you finally get home from work, you just get to kick back on the sofa and you got to play a console game lying down or something like that. If you have the time, and if you're somebody who makes videos on YouTube, I would love to see other people talk at length about some of these. Again, these are just light videos where we have fun and we recall a lot of our memories playing games from childhood. There could be some really killer standouts from things that you've seen in more modern games. Go ahead and make a video. It doesn't have to be a direct response to this, but talk about your own delights or cover the last topic. Talk about your peeves and the things that annoy you in games as well. So that's it. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing what you want to list in the comments section, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.